It's 6:12 a.m. Your passport is gone behind a glass window, and the officer hasn't said a word. You stand there gripping the strap of your bag, staring at the same road you were allowed to drive on 10 seconds ago. Nothing in the landscape changed. The trees are the same, the wind is the same, the soil beneath the checkpoint is the same soil on the other side. But that silence in your chest is older than countries, older than flags, older than maps. It may be hundreds of thousands of years old. So why can an invisible line make a modern human body feel suddenly unsafe? Let's rewind further than you think. The officer in front of you is not necessarily stronger than you. Maybe they are smaller, maybe they are tired, maybe they are thinking about lunch. But they carry something you do not. Behind that uniform is a coalition. Databases, laws, cameras, guards, courts, buildings, records, weapons, and millions of people trained to recognize the same authority. The officer holds a booklet. The system holds your movement, and your body understands that before your mind can explain it. Long before passports, humans had to ask a simpler question whenever they entered unfamiliar land. Who is here? And more importantly, who will answer for me if they decide I do not belong? Imagine standing on a ridge thousands of years ago. You can smell smoke below you, not your smoke. You see fresh footprints pressed into mud beside a spring, different tool marks in the cut branches. A child beside you is thirsty. Your own mouth is dry enough to taste metal. Beyond that ridge is water, but it may already belong to someone else. Not necessarily in the modern sense. No fences, no immigration desk, no printed map with a colored line. But perhaps another group returned to that spring every dry season. Perhaps their grandparents had camped there. Perhaps they had buried relatives nearby. Perhaps they had spent weeks drying fish, repairing shelters, storing food, teaching children which trail was safe. The land did not reject you. Other humans did. That is where territory begins. Not with a king pointing at a map, with permission becoming necessary. Anthropologists have found that many human communities organized access to land through relationships rather than geometric borders. A place could be connected to kinship, memory, marriage, ritual responsibility, seasonal use, or the simple fact that your mother's family had been welcomed there before. The first passport may not have been an object. It may have been a person who remembered who you were. A stranger approaching a camp could name a shared relative, show an ornament, speak in a familiar accent, offer news, bring a gift, lower a weapon, wait at a distance. These were not small gestures. They were survival technology. Because an unknown person is not just a person. They are uncertainty. Do they bring trade? Marriage partners? Information about animals? A warning about drought? Or do they bring danger? Your brain still carries this program. That is why hearing a familiar accent in a foreign city can make your shoulders drop. Why a friend's invitation gets you through a locked door. Why a job reference, a visa sponsor, a guest list, even a mutual friend online can feel strangely powerful. Someone inside the group has accepted responsibility for you. For a moment, you are no longer just a stranger. But humans did not defend every patch of Earth. That would have been impossible. If food was scattered everywhere, if herds moved constantly, if people could leave with little loss, then guarding a huge territory might cost more energy than it was worth. The real change came when leaving became expensive. Picture a river narrowing during a seasonal fish run. Fish crowd through one small channel. Families return year after year. They build drying racks, they smoke meat, they fill baskets, they dig storage pits. Heavy grinding stones remain in the same place because carrying them away would be madness. Now imagine what that means. The future is no longer somewhere ahead of you. It is sitting in a pit beneath your feet. Weeks of labor, winter calories, a child's survival, an injured elder's chance to stay alive. And suddenly, a place is no longer just a place. It is your future made physical. This is one of the strangest truths about ownership. It often begins as remembered labor. The wood you cut, the fish you dried, the shelter you repaired, the seeds you saved. The ground becomes ours when walking away would mean abandoning too much of yourself. And storage changes everything. It protects you from hunger. It also tells raiders exactly where your food is. A storage pit can be a greater political invention than a weapon. It creates a new question. Who gathered this food? Who guards it? Who gets to eat it? And what happens to the person who contributes nothing? Your body still remembers that argument. Think about the anger that rises when someone damages your home, takes your usual parking space, uses a shared resource without contributing, claims credit for work you did. The value is not just money. Your time is inside it. Ancient humans did not suddenly become greedy when they began defending places. Often, they were defending concentrated labor in a dangerous world. But then comes the problem. How do you prove that a place is yours after the people who remember your work have died? This is where the ground starts keeping records. Archaeologists cannot excavate an ancient thought. They cannot brush dust off a buried wall and announce, "Here is the first country." A wall can mean defense, or flood control, or ritual separation, or all three. But when many clues appear together, something changes. Rebuilt houses, heavy tools left in place, storage rooms, cemeteries near homes, sealed doors, standardized containers, large communal buildings, settlements surrounded by smaller settlements. The rule disappears, but the habits it forced into matter remain. A wall reveals separation, but not the reason for it. A seal reveals authority, but not whether people loved it. A storehouse reveals planning, but not whether the food inside was shared fairly. That uncertainty matters. Because human political life did not progress in one neat line from cave to village to king to country. Some early communities built impressive structures without obvious palaces. Some coordinated large projects without permanent rulers. Some may have actively prevented ambitious people from becoming too powerful. That sounds impossible until you remember what groups can do to a bully. They can mock him, refuse him, gossip about him, stop sharing with him, leave. In some small-scale societies, leadership was temporary. The best hunter might lead a hunt, then return to being ordinary the next day. The best navigator might guide a journey. The best healer might be listened to during illness. Competence mattered, but permanent domination did not have to follow. I've always found this next part hard to accept. Some societies did not fail to invent kings. They may have worked to stop kings from happening. Egalitarianism is not the absence of politics. It is politics strong enough to keep a would-be ruler from turning skill into ownership. But as settlements grew, memory began to fail. A camp can remember who contributed. A village can remember most families. But what happens when thousands of people live behind walls, depend on the same irrigation, share a marketplace, fear the same attack, and owe labor to people they have never met? Personal trust becomes too small. The human solution was extraordinary. We externalized memory. A basket became a standard basket. A weight became a standard weight. A mark in clay became proof that a door had been sealed. A tablet became an obligation that could survive the death of the person who made it. The state began when memory was no longer large enough. Now, a stranger did not need to know you personally. They could trust the seal, the measure, the office, the record. At first, that sounds liberating, and it was. Records allowed food to be distributed across larger communities. They allowed roads, walls, canals, and emergency stores to be maintained. They allowed people to coordinate with strangers across distance and time. But every tool of protection could become a tool of extraction. The same storehouse that saved families during famine could count what they owed. The same record that protected inheritance could preserve debt. The same wall that kept raiders out could keep hungry people in. One recent cross-cultural analysis found that grain mattered to early states not simply because it created surplus, but because grain was visible, harvestable, divisible, storable, and therefore taxable. That is a chilling sentence when you sit with it. A field is not just food. To an institution, it can become a number. And once people become numbers, a political machine can grow larger than anyone inside it. You can see the descendants of that machine everywhere. Your address, your identification number, your property record, your tax form, your passport. Your body still walks through a modern world built from an ancient discovery. If you can measure people, you can organize them. And if you can organize them, you can protect them or control them. Usually both. This is the price of the line. Countries created collective defense. They built roads, preserved laws, coordinated food, labor, and emergency response among strangers. But every protected inside creates an outside. Every we creates someone who is not. And during danger, that distinction becomes electric. Threat makes people cooperate more closely with their own group. It can also make them suspicious of outsiders, furious at those who avoid sacrifice, and more willing to accept strong authority. That instinct is ancient. Imagine a settlement under attack. Smoke rises from stored food. Someone closes the gate. Outside it, another family is running towards safety. Inside the wall, there may be a relative, but the gate still closes. That is the moral tension at the center of every country. The institution protects by deciding who it will not protect. States did not invent warfare. Human violence is older than states. But states could expand its scale, feed more fighters, build stronger defenses, demand more labor. Turn local conflict into organized campaigns. The shield and the chain can be forged from the same institution. So, why do people become loyal to something that can demand so much from them? Because countries learned to speak to a part of us that existed long before countries, the part that wants to belong. A flag is only fabric. An anthem is only sound. A map is only ink. But your nervous system does not experience them as only that. It sees signals, like body paint around an ancient fire, like a familiar bead pattern, like the sound of your own group calling through darkness. Countries did not invent tribal instinct. They scaled it. They used schools, stories, uniforms, memorials, language, sports, borders, and shared threats to make millions of strangers feel like relatives. That is why people say, "We won," when athletes they have never met win a game. Why criticism from an outsider can sting more than the same criticism from someone inside. Why a familiar accent across an ocean can make you feel home before you have even learned the person's name. A nation is too large to know, so humans learn to feel it. But making belonging that large requires simplification. A modern map gives every place one answer, one color, one authority, one legal identity. Yet human life has rarely been that clean. For much of our past, people moved through overlapping worlds, kin networks, seasonal trails, shared water, ritual sites, marriage alliances, emergency access, hunting grounds, distant trading partners. A place could belong to several stories at once. A river could unite people ecologically while separating them politically. A mountain could be a boundary and a meeting place. A person could belong to a camp, a family, a language, a ritual community, and several landscapes without finding that contradictory. Then maps arrived with sharper lines. And the map trained us to see the earth as divisible. That clarity made administration easier. It made taxation easier, defense easier, citizenship easier. It also made belonging narrower. A family could wake up on the same land and suddenly find itself under another jurisdiction. A seasonal route could become trespassing. A river could flow freely beneath a checkpoint, while the people beside it could not. The wind does not stop at the border. Only humans know what the step means. And that brings us back to the road. Remove the officer. Remove the booth. Remove the sign, the cameras, the flag, the barrier. The asphalt becomes dirt. The dirt becomes a continuous landscape. Nothing in the soil tells you where one country ends and another begins. But the country does not disappear, because countries are not natural objects, and they are not powerless fantasies. They are shared stories with roads, schools, courts, records, prisons, hospitals, taxes, guards, graves, and people who repeat their meaning every day without even noticing. You rebuild your country whenever you show identification, use currency, obey a traffic law, vote, cross a border, give an address, say, "My country." Except that an official record can change what you are allowed to do. The line is imaginary, the cooperation behind it is real, and so are the people left standing on the wrong side. We created lines to protect people. Sometimes we protect the line from people, and perhaps that is the question every country eventually has to face. Whether it still exists to serve the humans inside it, or whether humans have begun serving the invisible thing they created. The soil beneath your feet contains no country until millions of people agree on what your next step is allowed to mean. You've been carrying this longer than you realize. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to BackTimes, hit the bell icon, and share this video with someone who loves history.